Hey everybody, and welcome to the North American Star League. This is Division number 4, day number 4. Really excited. Obviously, there's some awesome matches. But before we go any further with this, we got to introduce ourselves. I'm Jeff Incontrol Robinson. To my right is Andre Greetorp Hengshua. How you doing, buddy?
Pretty good. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. So just a few things to tidy up. We've had a few issues with a couple of walkovers. We're definitely, we've got sound issues. There's aesthetic stuff. We're trying to work on all this, guys. We're going to make sure that the sound quality, actually today it should be fixed. So Greetorp can shout GGs and scream, and it'll be totally fine. If not, then we'll continue to work on that. But I think actually in conference we'll do that. And also today we're implementing music to make sure that during the pregame show, which we're doing right now, and also even during our casting, there's a little bit of kind of white noise music in the background because we understand that that is very important. Otherwise, it kind of takes away from the feel of the game. So definitely just try to understand that this is something that's this is the week number 1. There was, it was not going to be a perfect first week. I'm pretty happy with it, but we're always going to improve upon that, and that's got to be the goal of this league, is to always get better for all of you guys. So just kind of look forward to that.
And again, constructive criticism is always welcomed. We really take it in. We actually process all of it. We look at everybody's comments, and we're constantly changing to make this a better product. And we can't do it without you guys, so please keep it up. Thank you very much for everything that you have done so far.
And honestly, yeah, I mean, we kind of have the dream job. It's a lot of fun. We get to both play. Well, I get to play, and I get to commentate in this league. And if you ask a StarCraft 2 player if they, if when they're not playing, they could go talk about the game and kind of entertain people with StarCraft 2, they'd probably tear up a little bit. They'd well up with joy and pride. And I know I do. I'm really happy. So enough about the introductions, guys. We're going to go into the matchups in terms of the players that are being played. Then we're going to talk about the maps, and then we're going to go in reverse order and talk in depth about all the matchups. Now, again, just as kind of a reminder, this is the pregame show, so if you're actually looking forward to the games themselves, please do tune in about 25, 30 minutes, because this is going to be a lot of jabbering. And that's okay for some of us, but for some of you, you just want to see the game. So please do rejoin us a little bit. But Greetorp, what are some of the list? Well, actually, not some, but what are the players playing today?
Yeah, well, game 1, we do have Select versus Hasu Obs. It's going to be a very epic Terran versus Protoss. Game number 2 is going to be featuring Goody versus Cats in a ZVT. Rhett versus Ace is going to follow that in a ZVP. Match number 4 is going to be featuring Starlife versus Machine.
Yes.
And to anchor everything home, we have Braddock versus MC.
Now, some people have said Braddock, some people say Braddock. So if you guys hear both, there's actually, as far as I can tell, there's no definitive answer which one's correct. We might even, I don't know, I might even just call him Brad, but that could get me into some trouble. But Braddock, same guy, is one of the top Russian players. And we'll get into that in just a little bit. But we're going to do a little bit of a discussion on the maps right now because the maps keep changing for each of these divisions, and it's important to kind of recognize what the difference is. Now, the maps are going to be Tal'Darim Altar, Metalopolis, and Crevasse. Now, Tal'Darim Altar and Metalopolis are 2 of the maps that we've actually already talked about and seen, but we're still going to, I think we should actually discuss how these function with this group specifically and some of kind of the key matchups in this group. So let's start off with Tal'Darim Altar. This is for those of you that didn't catch yesterday or are not familiar with the map, it is a giant macro map. Each spawning location looks like a little mosquito on the flesh of an elephant. It's actually quite a large map. Many expansions, a lot of big rush distances. Well, it's hard to call them rush distances when they're so big, but it's the path from one main to the next is extremely long. So traveling time is very important. And anytime you have a big macro map like that, scouting and information is king.
I can't agree more. And also, we do have cluster expansions, I do want to say. So each individual base has a lot of expansions near it that's very easily defendable. You can really get 3 base extremely fast, and you can defend it at a relatively good arc generally when you're defending. There is one ramp, and then there's a longer ramp that you can just go and plug some units. Make sure that no attacks are coming from there, and if they are, you can scale your units accordingly. But it's a really nice map for those players that want to just sit a little bit and mass up a lot of army, and we do have players like that. Goody is one of the players that really likes that. Machine is another player that really likes to just sit and get a ton of units, play into that end game, and not really go into beginning or mid game. And I think Tal'Darim Altar is an excellent map for these individual players, as they're going to be able to get comfortable with their playstyle. They're able to get into the game where they want to be playing.
Well, yeah, and you certainly listed a couple of the names. A couple of things I want to mention, too, is Goody is actually wildly famous for his tank play. And in this, he's actually playing a TVZ against Root Cats, which is I can't wait to actually commentate that, because Cats is a really fun player. But tanks are huge on this map. The expansions are actually exposed to the low ground. And what that essentially means is that you don't have to push up all the way into the natural or commit to a full-fledged attack, when you can actually just set up base outside their natural, which is below the ramp and tough for the defender to kind of withstand, unless they have a mobile army or a swarming force that can actually meet the army down at the lower ground. So look for Goody to exploit that. A couple other points of interest, I think, for this group of players is going to be Ace versus Rhett. Ace actually really famous for his Phoenix play, and Tal'Darim Altar is a map that's famous for kind of its Stargate play from Protoss versus Zerg specifically. And the reason for that is because, of course, with flying your units, you're able to traverse the map at a much more accelerated rate. Specifically, the Phoenix and the Void Ray allows for you to disrupt that third hatchery, that's the third base, I suppose, pretty easily. The Phoenix pick up the Queens, the Void Ray does all the actual heavy lifting, killing the buildings. So Rhett should know about this going into it. I mean, a lot of the information on Ace is that he loves his Phoenix play, and it'll be interesting to see how he pans out against that. But Tal'Darim Altar is a giant macro map, and I feel like it's actually a little bit tough for Zergs just because there's so many destructible rocks, but also because the map is so big that creep spread's actually a bit of an issue. So we'll have to see how our Zerg players, Machine, Rhett, and Cats, to name a few, avoid that problem. You're going to have to look for Nidus Worms, drops, or even just clever creep spread play by Overlords, Creep Tumors, or perhaps an extra Queen or two. So those are a little bit of the little storylines we kind of look for on these maps. Now the second map is Metalopolis, and this will be our medium-sized map. Metalopolis, we talked a lot about this in our last broadcast. It's kind of like the Gridiron. This is the map where two good players go in, and they feel like this map gives them just about the best chance to represent themselves in terms of their skill. But one important note to make here, and we actually saw a couple players miss scout. We saw Axelav miss scout on Metalopolis.
Yeah, that was a little bit weird.
It's important to note this is not MLG Metalopolis. The spawning locations are up to the cosmos. So if you can get close positions, which does mean Metalopolis can be a lot harder for certain matchups in this game.
Yeah, going into Metalopolis, you need 3 different styles of play, because just based on the spawning, you can spawn in close positions through ground, through close positions through air, and also very far positions. And all of those different spawning positions do require a different style. So for close ground positions, you need to get that early game push. You need to get a lot of units out. And for early or close air distances, you need that harass out. You need that static defense.
Medevacs, Phoenix,
much faster.
Banshees. They're pretty terrifying in those spots.
And then cross positions, you can basically play any sort of style. It really opens the door, opens the floodgate for a different amount of styles. We're going to be looking to see how these players are going to be able to go about these different spawning positions, because it's going to be playing a key factor in how the play style turns out.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people, let's come out and say it, when people go into Metalopolis, they're like, come on, cross positions, come on. Like, they want that macro game. They want to see the two players really let, this is kind of a silly term I keep using, but it's locked in my brain, so I'm just going to go with it. Let their hair down. They want to see them have some distance between the two and allow themselves to play that game that way. So that's why, actually, a fantastic tournament like MLG has gone ahead and said, okay, let's put our hand on the map and say you cannot get close positions, and that's certainly one approach to that. So that is something to look for, but also we've seen a lot of controversy and interesting matchups like Idra versus Jinro comes to mind. When they spawned close positions on Metalopolis and GSL, Idra had no chance. So, I mean, there certainly is a little bit of a luck factor to this map, a little bit more of a randomness. So we'll kind of see how that pans out. It could be an issue or it could be a non-issue. Stay tuned. Now, the last map is going to be a new one we're introducing. It's Crevasse. And this, I guess we can call it a medium-sized map. It's not a mega big map, if I'm remembering correctly. And another big, pretty good macro map.
I think the expansion positions make it not a big map. It seems like a very big map, but because the expansions are spread out, especially getting your third base, it's pushed out more towards that middle side. It really makes you exposed because it has greater distance from your main to that third base. Makes it quite difficult, and you have to get that third base because the natural for crevasse only has one gas to it. And only having one gas, you're on 3 gas, you can't really tech too hard, you can't get your upgrades, you can't get those high-tier units that you want to, and be able to play in the entire game. So you're going to be a little mineral-heavy with your army composition throughout the beginning to mid-phase, I think. But going into that mid to end game, it's going to be interesting to see how the players go about getting their third base and securing it. That's going to be the hardest part.
Yeah, and the destructible rocks on the ramp kind of add an interesting. I have the map correct on that one, right?
Yes.
This is. I'm not even going to try to lie. This is the map I have the least experience on. Crevasse. It's made its space in a few tournaments, but this is certainly, as I move forward in the NASL, I will certainly be practicing it. But I'm not going to pretend. A lot of people see right through me right now and be like, "You haven't practiced that map," and I'll be like, "Of course I have. What are you talking about?" No, I haven't. So I got to work more on that. But one thing I've kind of noticed about that, because I definitely saw it in Clash of the Titans, I've seen it in a few other tournament games, is it's really tiered, like into the bases. But then once you get outside the bases, there are some places where it gets a little bit windy. A lot of Zergs actually said that they liked Crevasse, and this was actually before they took away the gas, I think it was. You could get 6 gas pretty easy, and that used to be like, oh my god, it was the best Zerg map. So that's actually, I believe, why they took away one of the gases, because that was too good for Zerg. Not going to touch that one. Someone can
be careful.
Be
careful, sir.
Someone could say something about that, but it's interesting to have this as game number 3 because I feel like I'm not alone in that this is one of the maps that a lot of people haven't played as much. It's not in the ladder. There are, I think it's GSL used this one, correct?
Yes.
It's GSL and then nobody else. Like it's not in MLG. It's not in any of the other big tournaments. I haven't seen it at DreamHack. I mean, I'm spewing a little bit here, so perhaps I'm wrong on a few accounts. But the point is, I feel like this would be the map that a lot of people don't have as much experience with. So in going into NASL, you know the maps and you know your opponent. It'll be really cool to see what comes up from this because I feel like a lot of uniqueness and originality should be expressed. And I'm kind of excited for that. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to be the maps for this division. Now let's go a little bit more in depth in the actual players. We're going to work backwards with match number 5 first, which is a great place to start. OGS MC versus Rox Brat OK or Braddock. And I will just go ahead and say with MC, he is the best, I think we can definitively say, player and Protoss player on the planet.
Yeah.
I mean, boom, headshot.
He's been performing so well in GSL. Really, really strong play. He's been able to make it to finals and convincingly win the GSL twice, I do believe.
Yep, twice.
Most recently won against Jelizerg, which is no slum himself. He's quite a strong player and is actually playing in the North American Star League.
A lot of people call him like the Kratos Protoss from God of War, which I thought was a little bit in the face of July, because July's nicknames from Brood War was the God of War, and here's a guy named after the game called the God of War. So OGSMC, there's not enough you can say about the guy. He's got expert timings. He's very much so a timing-oriented player. His brand of Protoss kind of revolves around that. So a lot of people make the misconception and call him cheesy, but he certainly is not. He has some of the best macro on the entire planet. His decision-making is flawless. He is one of the most fearsome competitors because one of the things I can say about him, too, is that he's so good and he takes this game that serious. Like, there's no question that he's practiced on the North American server. There's no question that he wants to win everything he enters. He just beat White Raw in the grand finals of this recent DreamHack Invitational for a lowly $15,000.
Yeah, just 15.
Oh my God! Like the guy enters every tournament and comes out near the top. It's a huge upset when he loses, and I say that because it truly is. He's just amazing. Now on the other side of the table is a hero, and I know you guys hear us say that a lot, but actually, okay. Forget those other times we said it. This time it's real.
No.
Anytime Brad OK enters any kind of tournament whatsoever, Russia turns out to support him in droves.
Yeah, everybody in Russia loves Braddock as he's just entered a recent tournament and he didn't drop a single game winning the entire tournament. That is a huge
I did not hear that. Which one was that?
Forgot which one.
Under the bus, yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Specifics. You don't know what it is. You're making that up.
No.
I know. I shouldn't have done that. I will get better at not throwing my co-commentator under the bus. But entering any tournament and coming out nearly flawless like that, like Naniwat did, almost did at MLG, is ridiculous.
Yeah, Braddock, his style is very, very strong. He focuses on just all-around standard top-tier play while maintaining a lot of harass on their opponent's economy. He's really good at drops, loves the Hellion drop play, and he incorporates that into his Terran versus Protoss while maintaining just that regular composition of Bio with, Mass Ghost, Viking, all of that good stuff that makes a great foundation for a Terran player.
Now, Braddock or Braddock or Brad, he has a Brood War background where he was one of the best Russian players from there as well, if not the best Russian player. And he's kind of actually carried that over into StarCraft 2. Greetor brings up his drop play, and that's actually, every time I watch Braddock or Braddock, I cannot get over how good his drops are, his multitasking. And I hope that comes into play today, because I really feel like that would be one of the ways where we could say, okay, Brat is the serious underdog, but with strong drop play and great multitask, perhaps he could topple the Titan that is OGSMC. And there's nothing I would like to see more. I love controversy and underdogs and big storylines, and that would be it. So it's not that I'm an anti-fan of OGSMC. It's just that he's favored to win everything.
I think Braddock definitely has what it takes. Yeah. I mean, this guy, he's a hero of Russia for a reason, and he's played phenomenally. This is going to be his big chance to show how good he is in relativity. He's already so good in Europe. Europe knows how good he is. Russia knows how good he is. Now we can the Western scene can actually see how good he is, and I think he's going to be a great contender against MC coming up in match number 5.
Yeah, I hope so. Now, in match number 4, this is a really interesting matchup. It's going to be Complexity Stall Life versus Evil Genius's Machine. Both these players have a bit of an interesting story going on here. Complexity Stall Life was one of the guys that caught some flack going into this league on the forums, Team Liquid specifically, where they were saying, who is that? What has he done? Why is he in this prestigious league? But I can tell you guys with confidence that he is a fantastic North American Terran who utilizes a lot of multitask, a lot of kind of he's not necessarily he's not a cheesy Terran, we can't say that, but he's a different Terran. He definitely has his own style, and I really like that. And on the other side of the board, we have Evil Genius's Machine, a guy on my team, and he has an interesting storyline as well. A lot of people haven't been seeing him in tournaments. He kind of bowed out a little bit early in MLG. I mean, he did qualify for the top 16, so he had a very tough group. He was obviously in Naniwa's group, and we all know how that story went. But he was expected to do slightly better and didn't do as well. So both these guys are a little bit under the radar. And, one guy, Stall Life, has kind of the burden of carrying a lot of doubt from other people going into this. Retorp, how do you think that's going to match up?
Well, I like Stall Life just because his timings are very strong. Yeah. I've actually witnessed him playing his Terran Verser quite a bit. He really favors the huge amount of army, not too big of an economy, and goes for those unique timings. And I think that's going to be very effective against Machine. Machine likes the endgame play, likes to go into macro mode.
He's a big macro zerg, yeah.
So Stall Life is actually going to be able to control the tempo of the game. He's going to have the initiative. With his timing attacks, I think Machine's going to be thrown off his element, and it could be a little bit of trouble for him. So it's going to be whether or not Machine can be able to defend against these individual pushes and then get his game into endgame where he's very comfortable and he can just macro, he can feel at home almost. I think that's going to be the deciding factor whether he's going to be able to win or not.
Well, I really look forward to that matchup. I think both these guys have a lot to prove, and I cannot wait to see who worked harder and who's going to show it. So match number 3, now this is a big, big match. I think one of the bigger of the week. Team Liquid, Rhett, sponsored by the Little App Factory, is going up against StarTale Ace. Now, StarTale Ace won one of the bigger European tournaments over Moon, actually, who we saw in Division number 1, Game Day 1. And he won in convincing fashion. I think he actually didn't drop a game all the way up until Moon took 2 games off of him. So we've talked about a couple of people who've gone through tournaments without losing games, and Ace is actually one of those guys who I believe did a similar feat and did it in convincing fashion. He's a Protoss player, loves to utilize the Stargate, really, really aggressive, but not necessarily gimmicky with his timings. I wouldn't necessarily consider him that kind of a player. He just loves very, very much so methodical, straightforward kind of gameplay. I mean, you could call it timings, but it's more like trying to gather an advantage while he expands a crap load behind it. And then on the other side of the table is one of the non-Korean heroes, Team Liquid's Rhett. And Rhett came from Brood War, and ever since his early rise in Brood War, he has been a star.
I mean, he's been sent to Korea multiple times. Hasn't performed as well as he wants to. I know he's been very displeased with his results, but he's been a fighter. This guy has been on top of his game for quite a long time. He came into StarCraft 2 a little late, and it only took him a little bit of time before he became one of the top in the foreigner leagues. He's been tearing up the scene. His macro Zerg has been a fierce contender every single tournament he enters. But I think, Rhett, he is the underdog going into this.
Yeah, he is.
He just hasn't been performing the way he wants to be performing. I know he feels that he's had a lot of trouble in this individual matchup, too.
All of Team Liquid's been slumping. And you know, I don't mean to kick a dog while it's down, because I love Team Liquid. Obviously, I'm from that kind of community. But I can tell you, without a shadow of a doubt, if Rhett were to win today over Startail Ace, that would be grabbing the torch and holding it up to the sky. That would be a way that Team Liquid could rise up out of the slump. And I think that kind of power in the hands of Rhett is a very confident and good place to have it. He is the underdog. They have been slumping. But if you're going to come out of a slump, you need to hit a home run in a big match, and this is it. So, ladies and gentlemen, when we get to that match, just know that in the background there is a lot of anxiety, a lot of tension in this extremely big match in week number 1 already. So I can't wait to get there. Now, in number 2,
I like this
we do have ESC Goody versus Root Cats. Both these guys are, I don't want to call them misunderstood players, but they're certainly not given the respect I believe they deserve.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
Cats is hailing from Florida currently. He is originally a Peruvian player, but going to be moving into the United States. Actually has a house, a pro gaming house.
Yeah.
Root and Fnatic MSI are there together, and they've been training nonstop 24/7, especially for the North American Star League. Now, Cats has a very intricate, unique style of Zerg. He plays a very aggro-type, high-tech Zerg play. He uses that hive tech, he uses the infestors quite a bit, and he's going to be pitted against Goody. Goody is... No, he's not cheesy. There's no way you can say he's cheesy.
Okay. Not cheesy in a bad sense. He actually, like, creates cheese. He's famous for drone rushing, like drone harassing, proxy hatcheries, Mass Queen and Guardian play.
But that's before, though. I think he's well developed right now, and I think he has the ability to take it over on Goody.
I can't tell if you're describing a basketball player or
no,
Cats.
I'm telling you, Cats is definitely not a cheesy player. I think he has a lot of metagame play, but all of his theories are fundamentally correct. Everything that he does has good reason, and it has justification for his.
Well, I don't want to come off the wrong way.
His aggressive.
I mean,
play.
I'm not calling him a bad player whatsoever. He's a fantastic player. But one thing that he would limelight, and I'd like to draw attention to as well, joking aside, is he does play an off-brand of Zerg. He's not one of those guys that goes on the forums and says, okay, what's a build I can use and practice for my future matchups. He's a guy who plays games and creates scenarios. He wants to create the place that he's going to do things, and he's going to invent strategies for each map. And that makes him a threat to anyone, and I really think that that's something that Goody is going to struggle with, because Goody comes from the European server. He probably hasn't played Cats, I don't want to say at all, because I would be speaking on behalf of them, but certainly very little, if at all. And Cats is a dangerous, dangerous opponent for all the reasons you said. I mean, you're absolutely right. He's not just a cheesy player. That's not how you can describe him. I guess I was wrong in that sense. But he is a well-versed, dangerous Zerg who will play differently than everybody else. And I think that makes him a huge threat, but also a lot of fun to watch. He's not afraid to be a performer, too. He's not quite like a Huck. He won't do a mothership rush and lose the game almost on purpose. But he will do some really flashy things that have a lot of high risk but high reward value to them. And he'll do it to entertain us, and he'll do it to win. So I can't wait to watch that. Now, on the other side,
Goody.
Germany's ESC Goody. Yeah. This gentleman, he likes tanks. All the memes of him, tanks, it's so hilarious. They put, like, Panzer helmets on him, and, like, they put him up on movie boards and stuff. And it's true. I mean, I watched him dismantle Nest-T in TSL. And for those of you who don't know who Nest-T is, he's one of the... He could be the best Zerg on the planet. He absolutely could be. And Goody tore him apart, and of course tanks were involved.
Yeah, he likes to go into the endgame, and he plays a very deliberate, concise form of Terran. He just likes those tanks. He realizes, well, of course he likes it. He likes the tanks and realizes their power. realizes at endgame, when I get a ton of tanks, their relative power is much stronger than the beginning and mid-game. So he says, alright, screw beginning and mid-game. I'll defend the entire beginning and mid, and then just go straight into endgame, turtle the crap out of my base, and just play brilliantly and deliberately throughout all of endgame, being super cost-efficient and just taking over in terms of tempo and initiative.
Yeah, he's a big map control kind of a Terran. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch. Now, in matchup number 1, and I'm going to go ahead and say it, I did not commentate this matchup, so it's going to sound a little bit weird when we give map analysis on this. We had to do a little bit of rearranging. These guys need to play early, so I think it's being broadcast now. Producer? Let's go ahead and do that mid-show. Just go ahead and tell me. No?
Yeah. Select and Hasiops was filmed and pre-recorded yesterday, actually. So it is going to be filmed, or excuse me, it is going to be casted by Caldor and Diggity SC. You can check You can check that out pretty soon. But just a little bit about that. Select. He's well, you have a lot of experience with him. As you actually had to play him in MLG Dallas.
Thank you. That's actually.
How'd that go?
You're like asking a guy who just got out of a burning building how that experience was. I'll tell you what. I've played a lot of competitive games. I've been a professional player for somewhere in the realm of 10 years, a competitive player for 12, my whole life of StarCraft. And in all those games, in all those days, and I mean this with earnest, I'm not trying to blow this up or anything like that, and actually people who were around that match probably could attest to this. I don't feel like I've ever been flustered. I played Bisu in Korea for an invitational, and I felt, I certainly got smashed, by the way. That's the end of that story, spoiler alert. But it wasn't the same feeling I had against Select at MLG. I felt like I was literally being outplayed, and that's a really hard thing for me to admit. I am a fantastic player. I'm on the rise. I'm doing really well, and I will do better. But in that series against Select, he understood things that I did not. He executed things at a level I was not at, and he played in a place that I was not in. And I know, okay, a lot of people are like, okay, get to the point already, but I'm serious. Like, it was stunning to be a part of that man's dismantling of some players. I feel like he's the most fearsome Terran you can play outside of Korea right now. His multitask, I called him the Octopus Terran. It hasn't stuck just yet. I'm waiting on you, Reddit. You need to get on that. Because he has to have more than 2 hands. You cannot drop in places he has. You cannot control Marines the way he does. And you can't... he's just so quick and so good with his decisions that he makes it look easy. And it's no question about it. He's won a couple of world championships in Dawn of War. He was certainly a very accomplished Warcraft 3 player. And now in StarCraft 2, he's one of the most storied Terran players.
Yeah, he has a great foundation. I have actually got the chance to talk to him many of times. We actually talk together probably at least once a week about Terran stuff. Skype, man. Skype.
Right.
And the guy is so brilliant. His fundamentals are the best part. And, it sounds weird saying, okay, your fundamentals are great, but in execution, it's actually hard to say, okay, get the best spread possible every single game.
That's what she said.
To be meticulous with your spread, to be open and be able to attack accordingly. It's extremely hard to do that consistently, to keep up while maintaining your macro, while maintaining your micro. This guy can do it, and he does it all. He's very meticulous with his army, as you've said, and of course you've experienced.
I would like the rematch, though. I will say that. I feel, well, I'm not going to plug myself too bad, but I want him. You want to play the best.
You want in?
Okay, you're going to make a joke here, but I'm not going to let you. You always want to play the best, and Select is one of those guys you want to play. He's one of the best. So when people say, like, I want to play Nadi, the childhood hero, for me personally, it's Select. He's made a fan out of me. Now, on the other side of the table, Mao's Hasuobs, and I feel like he's underappreciated. And I'm not, a lot of people in Europe are like, what are you talking about? We love Hasuobs. Well, I guess I'm speaking more to the North American scene. He is not known as one of the top Protoss. He's not one of those individuals that people are like, hey, I need some Hasuobs replays, or oh, yes, Hasuobs, I can't wait to root for him. It's mostly like White Raw, Tyler, Huck. Those are the guys that kind of get all the attention. But I hope you guys look for Hasuobs, because I'm a fan of Hasuobs. He's a fantastic Protoss. He executes very well. It's going to sound like the same kind of. It's going to sound like we're talking about the same people because Hasselhoff is actually that good.
Yeah, I mean, I can't really pin a style on him. He's
Yeah.
just an overall standard player, but he's robust against everything. He knows things are coming. I think, again, he just has a good foundation in the game. I think most of all, he's able to actually foresee. It's almost like he foresees things happening. He knows when drops are going to be coming up, so he prepares for them very accurately. He just does not want to risk anything until he has complete observer control, complete map control, and then he goes out and he's able to be extremely deliberate. I think the biggest thing I like about him that I've seen in recent games is his scouting. His scouting is unbelievably strong.
That's really important for pros, actually.
With that, he's able to play so deliberately. That's what separates top tier play from just top play.
And I mean that might sound like fundamentally silly, and of course there's a lot of like Silver League bronze or armchair quarterbacks going, I already do that excellently. Yeah. I'm at the top of my silver division. It's actually so important. For myself, when I elevated my own gameplay, one of the first places I started was having map vision, controlling those towers, throwing probes around the map, having multiple observers doing the information I need so that I can go ahead and react to what I see. So Hasselhoff is a guy that you can model your gameplay after confidently in that regard and come out very well. So we've talked about a lot of players, a lot of matchups. I cannot wait to commentate these games. Hopefully you guys are half as excited as I am because we have a great play day ahead of you guys for Division number 4, week number 1. Let's just go ahead and get right into it, Greetorp. I can't wait.
Shall, sir.